to the NSA headquarters in Laurel, Maryland?
Well, that's the ultimate irony, was they eventually traveled cross country from San Diego, and they set up their final base of operations. This is the crew that was about to attack the Pentagon. About a month before, they set up their base of operations in Laurel, Maryland, of all places. That happens to be the same city that NSA is headquartered. So they set up their base of operations in this Valencia motel. And almost across the Baltimore-Washington Parkway is NSA headquarters. The director's office is on the 8th floor, and except for some trees, he could almost see the motel where they're staying. So NSA is over there trying to find terrorists, and here's the 9/11 terrorists sitting right opposite the NSA on the other side of the Parkway, making their final plans. Mohammed Atta flew there for summit meetings, and they had to take 3 hotels at one point to put all the people there. So as NSA is looking for them, they're having their final summit meetings there, and they're walking around the Safeway. They're exercising in Gold's Gym. They're eating in the restaurants there. They're mingling with NSA employees. That's NSA's company town. It's just the ultimate irony that here you have the terrorists and the eavesdroppers living side by side in the month before the final attack.
You then say, after the attacks, the White House expanded massively surveillance, turning it inward on Americans right here. Can you talk about how they did it? Well,
first of all, looking back on the pre-attack, it was clear right after the attack that General Hayden, the director of NSA, realized the big mistake he had made, that these guys not only were in the U.S., and he never told anybody, they were communicating from the other side of the Baltimore-Washington Parkway, and he never let anybody know. So obviously he was very chagrined at the fact that you know, his actions were contributing factors to the whole 9/11 attack by not being more aggressive in going after their communications and telling people where they were. So after 9/11, to some degree to make up for it, he decided to not protest when the Bush administration, particularly Dick Cheney, began putting pressure on him to begin doing warrantless domestic eavesdropping, or warrantless eavesdropping of Americans. That was a big mistake. It would have been much better if he stood up like Jim Comey at the Justice Department did. He stood up as well as the director of the FBI, and even Attorney General John Ashcroft stood up and threatened to resign over parts of this warrantless eavesdropping. But General Hayden decided to go along with it, and as a result, the NSA began this very intrusive program of warrantless eavesdropping on U.S. citizens, both intrusive and largely useless.
I wanted to ask you about this documentary that you're making for PBS on Nova, and the news that was reported in the Washington Post a few days ago. FBI Special Agents Mark Rossini and Douglas Miller have asked for permission to appear in an upcoming public television documentary on pre-9/11 rivalries between the CIA, FBI, National Security Agency. It's your documentary. The FBI has denied them permission on grounds the FBI doesn't want to stir up old conflicts. Talk about what they have to say.
Well, the documentary I'm doing is, it's going to be very interesting. It's going to air January 13th, and what it does is it sort of takes a large part of the book and translates it into imagery, into video. So we actually go to that house in Yemen. We actually located that house in Yemen and did video there. It was fairly hazardous, but we got video of the house, and we traced the path of these 9/11 hijackers from basically the moment the message came in to the time when they were living opposite NSA in Laurel, Maryland. As part of this program, we're looking at what happened when they were in Kuala Lumpur. And what happened was, in their flight from Yemen to Kuala Lumpur, the CIA was able to get a copy of the passport of Khalid al-Mihdhar's passport, and the passport had a visa in there for the United States. It showed that they weren't just going to Kuala Lumpur, they were going to Kuala Lumpur and then to the United States. Well, that was very important information for the FBI, and at the time, the CIA had this very small unit within its counterterrorism center. It was called Alex Station, and that was the bin Laden unit. Those were the people whose sole responsibility was trying to find Osama bin Laden. And the center was made up mostly of CIA officials, but there were also 2 FBI agents there that were assigned to that unit. When that message came in indicating that Mihdhar had a visa to the United States, the 2 FBI agents protested that they should send a message to the FBI headquarters and notify them. Mark Rossini was one of the FBI agents, and Doug Miller was the other. Doug Miller actually wrote up a memo to FBI headquarters saying, we've got to notify FBI that these guys are probably headed towards the United States. They've got a U.S. visa. And Mark Rossini also said we should send this message to the FBI headquarters. And I interviewed Rossini, Mark Rossini, for my book, and I quote him in the book as saying that he was told by the 2 people in charge of Alex Station at the CIA that he couldn't send the message to FBI headquarters. He was forbidden to send it to him. And at one time when he protested, the deputy, I think it was the deputy head of that station, I couldn't reveal her name in the book because she's still at the CIA, but she put her hands on her hips and said, look, the next attack is going to take place in Southeast Asia, not the United States. So when we want the FBI to know about it, we'll tell the FBI about it. And under the rules that existed, they weren't allowed to notify the FBI headquarters without CIA permission, since that was a CIA document that that contained the information on the visa, on Mihdhar's visa. So I interviewed Mark Rossini, and he was very angry that he was never allowed to send that message. Had that message been sent to FBI headquarters,
and the story goes beyond that. I just wanted to say the story goes beyond that. I was saying this was in the Washington Post, it was actually in the Congressional Quarterly, that they were prepared to say publicly that under pressure from the CIA, they kept the full truth from the Justice Department's Inspector General, which looked into the FBI's handling of the pre-9/11 intelligence in 2004.
Well, not only that, the 9/11 Commission, which did a pretty poor job on a lot of this, they never looked at any of the information that I'm reporting on the National Security Agency, and they also never interviewed either Rossini or Doug Miller, the 2 FBI agents in there. I mean, it seems incredible to me that the 9/11 Commission never interviewed the 2 FBI agents who were assigned to the bin Laden unit. So that's part of the story that's never been told, that the American public just has no idea of some of these things that took place leading up to 9/11.
James Bamford, we have to break, then we're going to come back to this discussion. Investigative reporter, his 3rd book in a trilogy on the NSA, out today, The Shadow Factory, the ultra-secret NSA from 9/11 to the eavesdropping on America. Back in a minute.
Won't you come and help me save the people? Come and help me sing this song. Dance for
Music, freedom fighters here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. On the issue of the telecom's role in domestic spying, I want to turn to Mark Klein. He's the former AT&T technician who blew the whistle on the involvement of phone companies in the Bush administration's domestic surveillance program. Klein was with AT&T for 22 years. In 2006, he leaked internal documents revealing the company had set up a secret room in its San Francisco office to give